And welcome back to the second half of our show on Community Viewpoint. I'm Mike Smith, your host. And this morning we're talking to Mr. Michael Rogers and Mr. Brandon McCray. And it's in regards to Knots for Kids. And again, gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
All right. Well, again, we were talking about some really fantastic stuff in the first half of the show, dealing with young men and dealing with etiquette, dealing with something as simple as tying a knot in a tie. Am I kind of pretty much on point there?
You are.
All right, but it goes a lot further than that, okay? Brandon, if you don't mind, and Mr. Brandon McCray is one of the senior advisors for Knots for Kids. Let me start off with you. You talked about the kids and you talked about the inspirations that you give. It's almost like a gleam in their eyes, I guess, when they can accomplish something as simple as tying a knot in a tie. And you also talked about a rite of passage. Expound on that for me just for a few moments, just in case our listeners just tuned in, and briefly tell them what the organization is all about as well.
Well, sure. Knots for Kids, Knots for Kids, Inc. is a not-for-profit organization that focuses on promoting education, personal development, and health development for young African-American males in the Jacksonville community. Mm-hmm. They range from the age of 11 to 18 years old. Okay. And we focused on several things, like we mentioned, healthcare, how to live better lives, healthier lives, personal development, how to become a man, how to tie a tie, how to behave yourself in certain situations in certain places, and then of course the education piece. And that is, education is the key to success, and how do you stay on track from middle school to high school to achieve your educational goals as well too. So it's a holistic approach that we take, all volunteer organization that we have here, and we service 4 sites right now. Okay. Working with Lakeshore Middle School, the young men at Lakeshore Middle School, the young men at Northwestern Middle School, and Eureka Gardens Community Center, which is on the west side, and also Washington Heights, which is on the north side of Jacksonville as well. Okay. We focus in on those key areas.
Good. Michael Rogers?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to put you on the spot here real quick. And Michael Rogers, ladies and gentlemen, is Executive Vice President for Knots for Kids. And the question I want to ask you, how do the young ladies respond to the young men who comes through this program successfully?
Well, that's a super question. Of course, the young ladies that we interact with have a very positive response and a reaction to the program, and we're overly to the effort that the board and its volunteer force has committed to. It's almost as if we're lifting a burden. Right. We're helping them with the heavy lifting. It's very easy for their young men to become distracted and go off into less successful behaviors and begin transitioning through the juvenile detention centers and even jail. Right. That's not uncommon to our society, especially for African American males. Right. So when we have, again, a proactive approach to influencing young men to consider the wisdom in going in a different direction, in addition to providing them positive reinforcements and supports in a safe environment, the outcomes are tremendous.
You know, and I was sitting here thinking, man, it has to be positive, because what you're doing is instilling a positive message into the young men, and girls are very, very sensitive when it comes to, when you get to that age, you want to start dating, or you're interested in, a young man or something like that, and his mannerisms are atrocious, and that's the first thing that will turn a young lady off about us, But when you guys, and excuse me for saying it like that, but when you're investing your time to see that these young men have some sort of character and, the manners and what have you about them, and instill a vision of wanting to excel, especially educationally speaking. Oh man, the girls pick up on that, and they want you. They really want you.
Yeah, it's something we in our etiquette piece, Mike. We focus in on really creating a mock environment relating it back to dating.
Okay.
What it is to date a young lady. So we pretend like we're on a date, and the young men kind of act that out and pull the chair out for the lady, and she sits down and pushes it back in. And so we actually use that as a way of teaching it. It sort of relates to their current environment.
Mike, it's really the difference between adding value and building worth.
Right. Wow.
A lot of times, the ladies might have those kind of reactions to our young men, but the board and our volunteer force, we approach the work we're doing with the notion in mind that before we measure these young men, let's consider their valleys that they have traveled, the mountains, the struggles, the triumphs, and the successes. Before we measure and draw a conclusion or make a decision about who they are, let's fold back and pull back layers of that onion to really see the treasure hidden in who they really are. That is, I believe, a staple attitude in the board, and that's what gives us the fuel forward to keep at doing the work that is so much needed in the community.
Do you find that it's a challenge with some of the young men to actually meet them where they are, to get them to open up?
What I've seen, and Brandon Mike can piggyback off of this, is getting the young men to get out of their own way.
Right.
That is so important. It's not always our ability to reach them where they are. A lot of times, getting them to become aware of who they are and the difference between the road less traveled and the road that they need to travel to ensure and sustain their success in life. And that attitude transcends the workplace, it transcends their family units, and it just bubbles over into everything that they are involved in. So I think that is the concept that we bring to the table in working with our young men.
And exposure is important too.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Dead on. And we try to expose the young men to different places they may not have experienced before.
Right.
I mentioned our etiquette dining piece that we have. We host that at the University Club in downtown Jacksonville. University Club's one of our great partners with us on this venture. And so we bring the kids there for their what we call their graduation evening.
Right.
Once they've completed all the modules.
Sure.
We go through our etiquette and dining piece that evening, and the young men graduate from the program. But it's about exposing them to different places that they wouldn't necessarily normally be able to attend.
Right.
And to watch them in that environment and watch them discover that environment is pretty fulfilling for the kids.
Wow. Now, let's talk pretty much future things that may be pertinent to Knots for Kids. Is there anything on the horizon?
Well, I think the first thing, and I think Brandon has mentioned this a little bit, but I'll build on it, in that we want to create a culture of assessment. We want to be able futuristically to track the progress beyond the program for our gentlemen who transition into middle school, into high school, and also into institutions of higher learning, or whether they transition into the workforce directly, to be able to validate the work we're doing. And this work is very important because our partners who come alongside of us, stand with us, who help build our resource capacity, they demand it, and rightly so. So in terms of being good stewards and sticking to our core values as an organization of commitment, of integrity, compassion, and also service, creating a culture of assessment is going to be key to tracking success in the future.
I like that.
Yeah, and let me add, we would want to expand the program. We want to reach more young men, and that takes funding, money to make that happen, and it also takes volunteers. Remember, we're an all volunteer-driven organization, and so we're in need of volunteers. If this is an organization you feel as if you can make a difference with, we want you to be a part of Knots for Kids. And we're currently in 4 locations, as I mentioned before, but we'd like to see that grow as time goes on and grow, and volunteers will be important to make that happen.
And before we run out of time here, let's talk about contact information. Is there a phone number or website or email address you'd like to give out at this point?
Sure. If individuals are interested in contacting our organization, they can do so online at www.knots, the number 4, kids.org. That's knotsforkids.org. And we are committed to making sure that you have a world-class service experience, and we'll get back in touch with you as quickly as we can to see where, in fact, you would fit into the work we're doing.
I wanted to ask, do any of your graduates, and I'm going to say graduates, or any of the kids that go, the young men that go through the program, do any of them come back and volunteer and help out sometimes with maybe other kids that may go through the program, or do you leave it open for them to come back and give service back in that particular way?
We have seen that, Mike,
Okay.
with our young men at Lakeshore Middle School who've gone through the program. We've been there 2 years now, so we've got some graduates now.
Okay.
And some of them are still a part of the Team Up program.
Okay.
So they do help out with the young men, the new kids that come in each year in the program. So we're seeing that. We'll see more of it as we graduate more young men around the city.
Sure.
And before we end here, I want to thank our funders
Of
who
course.
has helped us do the things that
By all
we
means.
can do here as an organization. And Sontag Foundation, which is a local family foundation who invested in us,
Okay.
the first ones to invest in our dream of making this a reality.
Okay.
And so we're grateful for that. We're grateful for our partners. The Jacksonville Jaguars Foundation has also offered us a matching gift challenge too as well, and they've have given us a vote of confidence in what we're doing too as well, and we have countless other individual supporters as well.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's important also to recognize and appreciate our very own board of directors.
Okay.
We are a giving group of gentlemen, and we typically give to areas that we are vested in. And so we thank them and their continued support.
Any last words? We have about a minute or so left. And anything else you'd like to throw out there to our listeners?
Yeah, if anything, that kind of epitomizes in my mind the work that we do, it happens in the words of Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays.
Okay.
Folks need to understand, I think, that the message we give to our boys is simply this. It's not your environment. It's you. The quality of your mind, the integrity of your soul, and the determination of your will that will decide your future and shape your life.
Ladies and gentlemen, I can't tell you and express enough to you the smiles that are on these gentlemen's faces while they talk about this program, Knots for Kids. And they put it before you, and we want you to consider what they talked about. I'd like to thank Michael Rogers, and he's the Executive Vice President of Knots for Kids, and also
Thank you, Mike.
and also Mr. Brandon McCrae, one of the senior advisors for Knots for Kids. And thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having us.
It's been
Thank
a
you, Mike.
pleasure, and we want to see you again in the future. Update us on what's going on with Knots for Kids.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you
All
again.
right. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, before I end the show, I encourage you to go to the church of your choice. You make sure you keep it straight, you keep it tight. Peace.